what's going on, everyone? Greg and Matt here, Project Unbroken. So today we're going to be going through Matt's complete timeline of how he got off heroin without rehab. I'm going to be questioning him, and you guys are going to find out all the answers you need to know of how you should proceed to getting off heroin, kind of learning from Matt's story. As you know, we're both former heroin addicts. I'm about 7 years clean, Matt's about 10 years clean, somewhere in that range. So we have a lot of experience with this. So let's jump right into it. Oh, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all right? So let's jump right into this. Matt, we started using pills, I would say around when we were 18 or so.
Yeah.
I think that we first started using oxys, we got into perks, we messed with Xanax and everything else, but mainly we dealt with opiates. And we did that for like 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
Right? So, maybe we started once a week, once every couple weeks, then it went to a couple times a week. And eventually we both used heroin, and we actually did that at separate times. That's just what happened the first time you used heroin?
Like you said, it kind of was at a point where pill use was starting to pick up. Nothing crazy. Like I was still very functional. But doing pills a couple times a week, usually at nights, going out to bars or whatever, it seemed to reduce social anxiety, shit like that. But one night I was out with a buddy, a mutual friend of ours, and I knew he was using heroin, but it was just kind of like unspoken. And he had more connections for pills, and I was kind of like, hey, like anybody got anything? And I don't think he even tried. He was like, no, but I got this. And I had a couple beers in me. He didn't have to do a ton of convincing, to be honest. At that point, I was just like, I wanted to party, I wanted to get high. And that's where it started.
Now, so when you first did it, what was on your mind? Was it like, all right, I'm just going to do it this one time? Is it like what, do you remember what you were thinking about it? Or is it kind of just dealing with it for that night, or?
Yeah, from what I remember, first of all, I will admit that I was kind of excited.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what's this gonna be like? I don't think I, of course, had plans to have it go to the extent that it went to. But yeah, I figured it would be an occasional thing, when I couldn't get pills.
Okay, so from there, do you remember how often did you use heroin? How quickly did it pick up?
Pretty quickly. I think, I would say it was maybe a month, maybe 2 months before it was a pretty much everyday thing.
All right, do you remember how long were you using consistently, every single day, heroin, when you switched to heroin?
It was funny, because it was about maybe 3 months, 4 months, and then what happened is I moved to Florida for work for a couple months, and I didn't think it was any big deal. And I actually moved to Florida. Obviously, I had no connections down there for heroin, and so I stopped. And I dealt with some minor withdrawal symptoms, but I would also say that I was probably making, at that point, 3-4 months into it, I was probably making a bundle last me. So 10 bags or 11 bags, whatever it was.
13 first.
Okay. I was probably making it last me 2 or 3 days. So I wasn't using a ton at that point. So I dealt with some minor withdrawal symptoms. I was down in Florida for maybe 2 months. And then when I came back, got around, us again. And that's when it picked up full steam.
And how much were you doing at your peak, do you remember?
Probably about a bundle a day.
So about 13 bags a day or so.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Now how long did that last? How long were you on, about a bundle a day?
Oh, it's getting away from me, the timeline of it. I would imagine, I think it was about a full year, at least.
Yeah, I think it was more than that.
Yeah, it was at least a full year, maybe 18 months.
And you were just sniffing it?
Yep.
All right, so what happened to make you start wanting to come on? Or how many times did you try to quit where you didn't successfully quit?
Probably 5 solid attempts.
Major attempts.
Okay, so now that you say that, it was probably closer to 2 years of being in it. And over those 2 years, I think, towards the last 6 months of those 2 years, you and I both probably tried a solid 5 times.
Where we maybe got Suboxone or, did something like that, tried to quit cold turkey a few times. All right, so what was it that finally was your breaking point? Like, what was it that kind of got you on that road to quitting?
So I slipped up a couple times and had family members find bags. And the first 2 times I was able to play it off, and I was like, oh, my buddy's, struggling, and he must have left something in the bathroom. It was clearly me, and I think, they were skeptical, but the last time that I slipped up, it was, first of all, it was bad. It was a pretty bad slip up, and then the jig was up. So I was actually, it was weird. I was out and I was drinking pretty heavily. I was drinking and using dope a lot at this point. And I was, for some reason, I had my mom's rental car. Like, she was like blocking me in or something. I was over at her place and I had to run out for something. And I was completely trashed. And came home, went to bed, got up early the next day for work. I had to be in at like 5. And I remember her calling me. I was with you.
Yeah.
And I guess what I did, like while I was driving, I was sniffing bags and just like throwing the bags all over like her car. And so then there was no excuses. There was no getting around it. Also at that point, I think I was starting to, like, my life I could feel was becoming unmanageable. The drinking and the heroin, like all my effort was going in to finding bags or finding the money to get bags, and it does get exhausting. And so by that point, I was like, all right, like I'm ready.
Yeah, you're called.
Yeah.
I remember, we were in a box truck making deliveries when that happened. I was like, shit, it is over. That is it. But so what happened from there? You kind of got caught. What happened next?
Yeah, so it wasn't over at that point, of course. Everybody kind of, it was I don't want to call it an intervention, because I knew it was up. I knew everybody that cared about me and, that wanted to help me. This was probably my last chance to have their help and their support. I kind of just started looking at local rehabs. So we got caught. I was kind of just like, I didn't do anything for a couple days. I think I had found some Suboxone.
Yeah.
And that got me through for the next day or 2. And then I got dropped off at a local rehabilitation center. Terrible experience there. I stayed for about a week, and I want to say that I left for the right reasons. I ended up walking out of there after a couple days. But hindsight, I probably just wanted, I just wanted to continue to use. I mean, I had this, I was telling everybody, like, I got it, like, I'm good, I know what I need to do. But I got out, and it probably wasn't very long. I think I made it a couple days, and I was using again.
Yeah, so what happened from there? Like, how much longer did you use from there, and what happened?
I used for probably another 6 months. I was kind of back into it.
And at this point, you probably had to hide it a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Stressful.
It was a lot more stressful. I was doing I want to say a better job with managing it. I don't think that would have lasted long, but I was making an effort to get out of it, and I eventually found a very reputable doctor. Actually, it was a partnership. It was a doctor and a psychiatrist that had a partnership for Suboxone, and the deal was to get the Suboxone, you had to meet with the psychiatrist on I think it was like a weekly basis, and I was ready at that point, and that was just a really good situation for me to be in.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like one of the big things that kind of got you off was the accountability.
Yeah.
You kind of got caught, so it was something where, like, you're very close to your family, I know you well, and you really don't want to disappoint them.
Right.
I think that was a big thing for you, was like that, just like, damn, like I can't disappoint them. You know what I mean? Like, we always talk about you need to have a big reason why, and I think for you it was like your life was falling apart. You didn't want to disappoint your family. Would you say that's true, or was there anything else?
Yeah. Well, that was a major part of it. And again, I remember, because when shit like this happens, a lot of people, people are very honest, and they were like, you know, I remember I was talking to my mom in particular, and I was telling her, you know, that I liked who I was when I was on dope. I was like, I'm always in a good mood, like I'm never grumpy. And she was like, we don't give a shit, like we like you for the way you are, like it, you know. And then that made me want to be how I was without anything else, and that was a big part of the motivation. I wanted, you know, again, I'm lucky to have the support system that I have, and I knew that if I kept continuing down this path, I would lose that whole thing.
Yeah, so now when you got on Suboxone, we have a video out on Matt's complete timeline for Suboxone. He was on it for about a year and a half. He come off very slow. You know, we talked a little bit before this video, and we think one of the really important things is when you go on a maintenance program, like we're wondering, you know, we get all these questions in, like, you know, I've tried Suboxone, it doesn't work. A lot of times we feel like the people who it doesn't work for, they're not getting away from their like you even got, like you bounced me.
Yeah.
You had to,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, we went from hanging out every day to one day just not talking at all. And that was the right move for Matt, because with me around, I wasn't ready to quit at the time. I would have kept dragging him back into it. So he completely cut off everyone. It wasn't an easy decision, I'm sure, for him, but he had to completely cut off everyone that used, including me and another good friend of his. And then he was around people who weren't using. He started getting on Suboxone. He started getting used to a life on Suboxone, not using, and then you started kind of coming down off the Suboxone.
Yeah, I think that is probably the biggest key to success, especially for myself. And like Greg said, that was the hardest decision I ever had to make. I had to completely get rid of everybody that I knew and hung out with. And that sucks, because you're just, you know, you're used to, it's just like friendship is not an easy thing to give up on at all.
You pretty much got rid of your two closest friends.
Yeah, and it was like 10 years plus.
Yeah.
We hung out together every single day, before our addiction, during our addiction. That was not easy, but I also knew at the same time there was no way that anybody was ever going to get out of this thing if, you know, we continue to hang out on a regular basis. Like, it's just, my willpower was nowhere near strong enough to be able to fight that.
I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. They look at like Suboxone and methadone as like the cure. It's not, you know what I mean? It's great if you use it in the right way, but if you think you're just going to get on Suboxone and keep living the same lifestyle you are, around the same people, doing the same things, it ain't going to work.
It will not work. It'll absolutely not work. And Greg and I have gone pretty into depth on, you know, removing yourself from whatever social circumstance you're in, you know, other people that are using. It sucks, but it is vital to your recovery and, you know, possibly their recovery. You know, if not, it's just kind of, you guys just we'll keep pulling each other back into it.
Yeah, so I want to quickly cover like the major points, because we want to help people get off heroin. You know, whether it's with or without rehab, we don't care. Whatever works for you. We just want you to know that we did it without rehab. That's possible, and it fits some personalities, right? But I think the major points here is something happened in Matt's, you know, timeline that made him really want to quit, right? Like getting caught, it was like, fuck, like now my family knows, like my life's starting to fall apart. Like there was something that happened that made him want to start turning things around, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we talk about with people enabling. We're like, you can't make it easy on an addict, because when it's easy, they're never going to want to quit. Like it seemed like it got harder and harder, and you said, you know, even though you kept using for 6 months, it was like you had to hide it, like it was a pain in the ass.
It was really difficult.
Like your addiction got harder.
It got harder.
Right,
Yeah.
so eventually that made Matt want to quit. The next major step that I think he took was cutting out me and our other good friend who used. We were his using partners, right? So he cut out everyone around him that used, and we've gone over videos talking about this, how important it is. You can't just jump on a maintenance program and expect it to work when you're living the same lifestyle. So he cut everyone off, then started the maintenance program, or he got that in place, cut us off, and then started implementing the maintenance plan the way it was supposed to be used.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's a really tough decision, but another part of, if you need to cut people off, another part of that whole thing is who you surround yourself with afterwards, because we're social beings, we need to be around people.
That's a good question. I didn't talk to you for 5 years. Who did you surround yourself with?
It was people that didn't even know what heroin was. I just pretended, and for myself, I just, a big motivation for me, when I was at rehab for a couple of days, when they were saying you're always going to be an addict, you're always going to be struggling with this, that struck a nerve too, where I was like, no, I'm not. This is I tripped up, I got caught in this thing, but I'm gonna fix it, and I will never think about it again. Of course, that didn't happen, but that remained my mindset through my recovery. So when I would, meet people or, make new friends or put myself in new social circumstances at a gym, or it was always places where heroin was not on the radar at all. It was never a topic of conversation. They didn't, as far as I know anybody else who ever used heroin, and I just never even thought about it. And that was also really helpful for me.
What I think is really interesting is Matt really got off Suboxone with very little withdrawal. I mean, I think we've talked before in your videos. You can watch the Suboxone timeline video, but you said your biggest thing was just anxiety coming off. Like you didn't have any of the major withdrawal symptoms.
None. Yeah, none. No. And again, if I had to go back and do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have as much anxiety, or at least I would have the tools to kind of combat it a little bit easier, because you're going into the unknown. And Greg and I talk about this a lot with when you begin to taper off, how you want to frame it in your minds. And it's just anything new is going to be scary, but when you're kind of working your way off of that, I think we're just we're so used to having some sort of substance to fall back on if we get stressed out or anxious or depressed. When you go into that unknown, it's like there's no net to catch you if something happens. But I started to see like things would come up, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I can deal with this. Like I'm okay. I'm not gonna fall apart because some stressful situation came into my life, and that is a lot of what I credit, both of us now having gone through it, why we're so resilient in, difficult situations when it comes to relationships, business, whatever. Like, it doesn't faze me or Greg, like to come up on a really difficult situation, because you've been tested and you're gonna come out strong on the other side.
Yeah, I like that. So, that kind of brings you through how Matt, this complete timeline for how he got off heroin, how he started, his roadblocks along the way, and really what worked for him, which was, a major thing that kind of sparked him wanting to get off. Of course, he had a bunch of roadblocks and, a bunch of speed bumps, but eventually he got on the Suboxone, he cut off his friends that were using, he implemented the plan of Suboxone. When you implemented that plan, did you have any road bumps through there?
Of course, yeah. I mean, shit happens. There was nothing major, but again, it was just kind of it was more of the anxiety of being like, I'm not sure what this is gonna be like. I'm dropping from 16 to 8 milligrams, which I thought was gonna be a real big jump. And for that week, I was like, I don't know, but I was good. And that's the biggest thing I think you can take away from this, is just understand that you're gonna be okay. And it's 100% possible.
All right, cool. Yeah, so again, that's his complete timeline. If you guys have any questions at all about Matt's timeline, how he got off the heroin and the Suboxone, let us know, comment below. I'll put the video or the link to the video for his complete timeline for getting off Suboxone below, so you can check that out as well. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to get the word out there about Project Unbroken, help people get through this shit and improve their lives.
That's right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.